As we head to week 15 of the fantasy football season and the playoffs for most of you, which quarterbacks and tight ends can you trust to help pull out a victory? We're about to find out. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris, and you know what we're here to do, break down every game for week 15 and talk about the quarterbacks and tight ends that matter. Who should you start and who should you sit? No more buys. Every team will be in action, including 3 games on Saturday. Here's some guys you don't need to even worry about. Quarterbacks who are must starts. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Justin Fields. At tight end, Travis Kelce and Dallas Goedert, assuming he plays. All right, we're going to kick things off with the first game of the week on Thursday night. 49ers at the Seahawks. Not the matchup we expected before the season started. I'm talking about Brock Purdy against Geno Smith. Now, Purdy has been pretty good, but did suffer an injury last week. Assuming he plays, how do you feel about Brock Purdy in fantasy?
I mean, you can't feel great. Short week in Seattle, good secondary. Not starting him in a 1 QB league, no chance. But I think 2 QB super flex, he's startable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's been good, but a little bit more real life good than fantasy good. Not being asked to throw the ball a lot. Don't think he'll really have to throw the ball a ton in this game. At Seattle, not a great venue for an opposing quarterback. Yeah, super flex, sure. But single QB, no chance for me. Now, George Kittle, I mean, you've got to be worried about him. Like, there's no question. But do you still feel like you have to roll with him?
I don't know if I say you have to roll with him, but I mean, look at the tight end landscape. It's not like there's 15, 20 great choices out there. Like, who are you playing over George Kittle? So I think if you have George Kittle, you're just kind of stuck with him and have to take what you get.
Yeah, there's really only a small handful of tight ends you would consider over him. And Seattle has been pretty generous to tight ends this year. So I would give him another shot. I'd say for the most part, you're probably starting George Kittle. Now, what about Geno Smith? Last week was really more of a good fantasy week based on volume, but not a great real-life week for him. Against this 49ers defense, what do you expect?
Yeah, you can't be excited about Geno Smith this week. He is at home. That definitely helps, but yeah, like barely startable in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, very fringe QB1, I would say. You don't want to go with him against San Francisco. Again, there's really not that many quarterbacks I feel so much better about this week. So he's just kind of right there on the bubble of being a starter in a single quarterback league. And then what about Noah Fant at tight end? Is he a realistic option for you in week 15?
No, nobody on bye. San Francisco 49ers defense, not starting him.
Nah, San Francisco, one of the toughest against tight ends, and Fant's not getting enough volume to be even considered for me. Colts taking on the Vikings. Would seem to be a good spot for a quarterback, but is it good enough for you to consider Matt Ryan?
No, not in the 1 QB league. I don't care about the matchup. Not enough to trust Matt Ryan. I think in like a 2 QB Superflex league, you can consider him as your QB2, but that's it.
Yeah, I think he could get enough pass attempts against a defense that's been actually pretty generous, but it would be 2 quarterback leagues only. And then what about Kirk Cousins? I mean, he put up some numbers last week. Can he do it again against the Colts?
I mean, definitely a tougher matchup, but they're at home. They're in the dome. He's got Justin Jefferson. Not my favorite streaming QB this week, but I think he's at least startable.
Yeah, the matchup isn't nearly going to be as good for him, but he's at home, like you said. Not a terrible matchup. Kind of like Geno Smith, very fringe quarterback one for 12-team leagues. And then T.J. Hawkinson, I mean, based on how tight ends have looked this year, I think he's at least a top 5 tight end this week.
Yeah, another guy, I don't think you're going to find a better option, out there on the waiver wire. So if you got T.J. Hawkinson, you're starting T.J. Hawkinson.
The Ravens will be traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns, and they could be down to a third-string quarterback. I'm pretty sure if they are, you're not considering Anthony Brown. If Tyler Huntley does manage to play, are you trusting him?
Trust is a strong word. Not in a 1 QB league, no. In a 2 QB super flex, I guess, because it's the Browns.
I'm not doing it. Tyler Huntley, look, I didn't feel good about him last week. I don't feel any better about him despite the matchup because he's limited in what he can do, and now he's going to be limited physically. I don't want Tyler Huntley in my lineup. Mark Andrews, not a no-doubter anymore, and there's legit concern. Look, what if they're down to Anthony Brown at quarterback? Are you actually pulling the plug on Mark Andrews?
I think I am. I mean, it depends on your options on the waiver wire, of course. If your option is a guy like Noah Fant, then I'll still play Mark Andrews. But if you have a decent option, I'm not starting Mark Andrews this week.
I think you have to consider benching Andrews. Again, you have to throw name value out. Look at what has happened lately. He has not been an elite tight end. With a very inexperienced quarterback, it would be really tough to trust him. So depending on who you have, I think you can consider benching him. And then what about Deshaun Watson? Does he do better this week now that he's at home against the Ravens?
I think so. I mean, yeah, back at home will help. Facing the Ravens will help. Again, kind of on that fringe of, a top 12 startable QB in a 1 QB league.
Gonna agree. Depending on who else you got, Watson is, for the first time, startable, but I wouldn't feel great about it. David Njoku, I do feel pretty good about. I think he's a guy, he's pretty much a must start.
Yeah, I think so. Looked good last week. You got to feel good if you have David Njoku, you're starting him.
Miami will be traveling to Buffalo. Important matchup for these two teams. Let's start with Tua Tagovailoa. It's just not looked the same the last 2 weeks. Does he bounce back in this matchup?
I don't know. I mean, didn't have a huge game the last time they played, and that was in Miami. Now on the road in Buffalo. I don't think I can start him in a 1 QB league. I think he's 2 QB Superflex only this week.
I don't know what exactly been going on. Obviously, some injuries along the offensive line have impacted them, but he's just been off on some throws. On the road in Buffalo, possible wintry weather there. I think he's got to be 2 QB only. Now on the other side, well, look, Josh Allen hasn't been great lately, but you still roll with him if you got him. What about Dawson Knox? He did score last week.
Yeah, finally, but you missed it. I'm not banking on that again. I'm sitting him.
Yeah, I'm not banking on it either. I think you can safely keep him on the bench. Falcons at the Saints. A new quarterback behind center for Atlanta. That's Desmond Ridder. How do you think he does in his first game?
I mean, I don't know, but I'm not trusting him. I know he's got that running ability. I know he's got the arm strength, but it's not like this is a dynamic offense. Let me see it first. I'm sitting him.
I mean, even in a super flex league, this is super risky. This time of the year, that's not what you need. This is playoff time for most fantasy leagues. Just keep him on your bench and find out. And the other side, I can't say I feel any better about Andy Dalton because he doesn't even have that rushing upside. I know it's a good matchup, but still, it would be a super flex only option for me.
Even then, I just feel like the upside is so low for Andy Dalton. I'm not putting him in my lineup, even in a 2 QB Superflex.
What about Taysom Hill? Was more involved last time the Saints were playing. Is he a guy that you could roll the dice with?
That's the right word. He's a complete roll of the dice at tight end. I mean, if you're completely desperate, you have no other options, sure, go for it. But that's it.
I mean, it is the Falcons on defense, but still, just be prepared potentially to have nothing because with him, it's either a big play, big game, or not much. All right, we have Pittsburgh taking on the Panthers this coming week. Kenny Pickett, very much in question in concussion protocol. If he plays, is he playable?
No, Kenny Pickett is just never playable for me, and this game looks like it's going to be a slow, low-scoring game. Not starting him in any format.
No, he really wasn't playable in fantasy even before the injury, so no interest there, and I think it's safe to say not much more interested in Mitch Trubisky coming off a 3-pick performance.
Yeah, hard pass on Mitch Trubisky.
What about Pat Freiermuth? Do you think that he's impacted either way by, potentially having Trubisky back there again?
No, I mean, caught a touchdown from him, so that was nice to see. I don't think it matters. Pickett, Trubisky, I think Freiermuth is involved, and he's another one of these tight ends where, you're probably not going to have a better option on your waiver wire So if you got him, you starting him.
Yeah, it's nice to see that even, along some of these elite tight ends, guys like Kittle and Andrews, Freiermuth has been probably the most consistent. Never going to have any of those monster games, like those guys have had, but at least he's getting you something. So I think he's a solid start once again. And then on the other side of the equation, there's Sam Darnold as the Panthers quarterback. Where does he fall for you this week?
He's like right there with Kenny Pickett for me. I'm never starting him. No upside. Not starting him.
Yeah, you can't start him, and especially you might not even have his top receiver, DJ Moore. No, I can do better. Chiefs taking on the Texans. Only guy really in question here is Davis Mills, and that's really only for deep 2-quarterback or super flex leagues. Do you like him any better than some of the guys we've just talked about?
I mean, I probably like him slightly better than Kenny Pickett and Sam Darnold because at least, there is a little bit of upside, but not enough for me to play him. I'm sitting him.
Yeah, I actually put him a little bit lower than Darnold because at least Darnold, one thing he does is run the ball, and he seems to call his own number near the goal line quite a bit. Davis Mills doesn't run at all. He's still going to be without possibly top 2 receivers. I know maybe they have to throw the ball 50 times, but I don't care. I'm not starting him. Cowboys at the Jaguars. Dak Prescott, this whole offense continues to roll. How strongly do you feel about him this week?
This week against the Jaguars, very strongly. You got Dak Prescott, you have to start him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we expected better things. He was a little bit off last week against Houston. Not sure why. Maybe they took that team a little bit for granted. He's still a must start. Don't question it. What about Dalton Schultz? Is he must start?
Yeah, again, in this matchup against Jacksonville, one of the tight ends I feel really good about this week, you got to start Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I'll say I think Schultz could absolutely smash this week. He's a guy I'm super high on. You have to start Schultz this week. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, now that we expect nothing, back to being a stud. This whole offense is so frustrating, but what do you expect from Lawrence against this Cowboys defense?
That's the thing. He's had a stretch of really good matchups. Now he gets the Cowboys. Again, another guy kind of on that borderline startable in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, I can never really feel comfortable with Lawrence as a guy in a single quarterback league. Again, you shouldn't be desperate for quarterback at this point. You shouldn't be streaming guys. There's no teams on bye. I can't feel great about him against the Cowboys. I know that secondary's banged up, but still, I would rather take my chances elsewhere. So he's probably best saved for Superflex leagues this week. Now, what about Evan Ingram? Coming off his career best game, just destroyed Tennessee. Can he at least do something similar against the Cowboys?
I mean, similar? No. But I think, look, this is definitely a letdown spot for him. But look at the tight ends we're talking about. He's one of the guys that has upside. That's really all you can ask for at tight end. I think if you got Evan Ingram, you got to keep rolling with him.
I'll say he's pretty much a top 10 tight end, but to me, kind of on the lower end. You know how this Jacksonville team is. It's going to be Christian Kirk's turn this week, or some other random person. I think he's startable, but not an absolute must start. Lions going to take on the Jets. We've had the really good Jared Goff the last couple of weeks. What version do we get in week 15?
We get a Jared Goff that I am not starting this week. On the road, Sauce Gardner, probably not great weather. I am benching Jared Goff this week.
I am too. Look, don't get carried away by the numbers. You know Detroit's a lot better at home, and they've had some pretty good matchups on paper the last couple of weeks and taken advantage of some defenses. This is not a defense they will be able to take advantage of, so I'm benching Jared Goff as well. Now, on the other side, we got, Mike White is going to be very questionable. Of course, he was hospitalized after that game, taking some hard shots to the ribs. Would you play him because it's Detroit?
Yeah, it's Detroit. I mean, not a guy I'm ever going to play in a 1 QB league, but I think in a 2 QB Superflex league against Detroit, you can start him.
Yeah, obviously risky there because of the situation. Another hard shot could end his day, but I'd still take him over some of those guys we've talked about, like Davis Mills, in a Superflex league only, though. What about Ty Conklin? Another guy, it's hard to predict. I mean, again, it's the Lions. Does that put him on the streaming radar?
I think so. Streaming option at best, though, because we know like there's definite risk here. So streaming option if you need them.
Yeah, I don't even know if I feel that confident. I think there's other tight ends I would go with instead. I'm going to say no to Conklin. Cardinals going to take on the Broncos. Looking like Colt McCoy is the guy now for Arizona. So how would you feel about him in Mile High?
Terrible. Not starting him in any format, no chance.
No, I mean, he's a fine game manager. He can put up some numbers once in a while. Against Denver's defense, not feeling it. No way you can start him. For the Broncos, it'll be interesting. Russell Wilson, just as he finally started cooking, got concussed. If he makes it through the protocol and does play, would you start him?
No, I know it's a good matchup against Arizona, but I'm not like barely over half of a game of looking good versus a whole season of looking terrible. I'm not ready to trust him yet. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, I really would be surprised if he does play, but even so, I'm still not putting Broncos in my lineup for the fantasy playoffs, so no to him. Brett Rippon, you mean really?
No, definitely not starting Brett Rippon.
No, that's an easy no for me. What about Greg Dulcich?
No, not starting Greg Dulcich. No.
I mean, Arizona and tight ends and their defense, but I don't care. I'm not starting Greg Dulcich no matter what. Patriots and Raiders. Let's start with Mac Jones. I mean, great matchup for a quarterback, but does that extend so far as to Mac Jones becoming appealing in fantasy?
No, I don't care about the matchup for Mac Jones. Just not enough upside. I'm not starting him.
I would put him in a super flex league just because of the matchup, but that's as far as I'll go. What about Hunter Henry? Again, it's the Raiders. I guess he's at least on the radar, but how high up for you?
Yeah, not very. I mean, maybe right there with Greg Dulcich, but not starting Hunter Henry this week.
I mean, I'll put him ahead of Dulcich, but not too much higher, so it would have to be a really desperate situation to start Hunter Henry this week. All right, and then there's Derek Carr, who sometimes piles up points and then sometimes just does Derek Carr things and just finds a way to lose a game in the second half. Which Derek Carr are we going to see this week?
Against the Patriots, probably the very bad Derek Carr, not starting him.
Yeah. Super flex league, sure, but man, you just can't feel great about him. Now, Darren Waller may come back, supposedly be ready to roll for week 15. If he does, would you play him?
I mean, I think you almost kind of have to. Not that I'm excited about him, but just the tight end landscape is just so bad as it is every year. I almost feel like you held on to him this long, you might as well throw him in your lineup.
Well, I'm going to say no because I haven't been holding him anywhere. I didn't draft him anywhere. I haven't been excited about Darren Waller all season, and his first game coming back on an extended absence against the Patriots defense, which, not dominant, but still pretty tough to tight ends. It's a no for me. I just can't put Waller in the lineup. If Waller doesn't go, we still have Foster Moreau as the starter, and I'm still saying no. What about you?
Yeah, I'm saying no to Foster Moreau.
Titans at Chargers. Let's start with Ryan Tannehill. I'm pretty sure he's a super flex option only, as usual.
Yes, but I do like him, as far as the super flex option goes again this week because, like last week, it's a great matchup, and they're probably going to have to throw a lot because they're not going to be able to hold this offense down. So, super flex, 2 QB only, but a good option.
All right, now what about Chig Okonkwo, guy we've been talking about? Keeps coming on. I mean, don't want to get carried away, but you've got to be interested in him. How much, though?
Yeah, I think, again, I mean, I don't like him more than guys like George Kittle or that, but I think if you picked him up off waivers, just keep streaming him because at least he has upside, and that's all you can really ask for a tight end right now.
Yeah, exactly right. Young, athletic tight end, got some speed to burn, and they're targeting him quite a bit. Obviously, if Treylon Burks does come back, that might hurt him a little bit, but man, I'd still take him over a lot of these tight ends, so he's at least streamable. And then we got Justin Herbert, who now finally looks like the old Justin Herbert because he has all his receivers back. Is he a must start?
Yeah, against Tennessee, a pass funnel defense, you got to start Justin Herbert.
Yeah, no questions asked. If you've been having Herbert and you've been disappointed, I think he'll be happy now. He should smash through this week and the rest of the playoffs. And then there's Gerald Everett. He might be affected negatively by those other receivers being active. Is he still startable?
I still think he's startable again, just because of the position he plays. Like, don't love him, but you got to like him more than a lot of other tight ends.
Well, I think you have to like the fact that facing the Tennessee Titans, who just got obliterated by Evan Engram, I mean, I don't expect Gerald Everett to have that kind of game, but I think he's definitely startable this week. Cincinnati at Tampa Bay. You're good with Joe Burrow. Are you good with Hayden Hurst if he plays? Has been injured. Not sure if he'll even come back, but if so, would you roll with him?
I think you have to have some interest. I mean, we potentially might have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins out, so I think if he plays and he's healthy, like he's, practicing all week, I think he's streamable.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to go with him just because we've seen this before. Of course, Higgins missed some time. Boyd really hasn't been much of a factor anyways. So I think he's barely streamable for me because I just don't know if there's much of a ceiling. And then let's talk about Tom Brady. I mean, I don't know what's going on. He seems to be getting worse as the season goes on. Is he even startable?
Yeah, I don't think he's even startable in a 2 QB Superflex league this week against Cincinnati, this tough defense. Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, well, in Superflex, you can't be excited about it, but I'd rather go with him over some of those other guys we talked about. So, but the low end of the QB2 spectrum, that's where Tom Brady is these days. Giants at the Commanders. Daniel Jones still in charge for New York. How do you feel about him?
Not good. Not starting him. I mean, your only hope with Daniel Jones is like he runs in a touchdown, which he can do, but even then, not giving you a whole lot. I'm not starting him.
Always just kind of a fringe super flex play. That's what Daniel Jones is. What about Daniel Bellinger, the tight end?
Yeah, I feel like there are better options. Like you can get 5 points from any tight end that has more upside. So I'll sit Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. This passing offense just can't excite you, and Bellinger is not in this smash spot or anything. So just go ahead and keep him benched or on your waiver wire. And then what about Taylor Heineke against the Giants?
I mean, decent upside in this matchup because the Giants, even on their secondary, they've been really bad lately. So not in a 1 QB league, but Superflex 2 QB, I think he's startable.
I'll agree. Again, one of these guys who never really is going to get too high or too low in terms of fantasy production. So playable in 2 QB leagues, and that's it. And then Monday night, we're going to get to be treated with Baker Mayfield against Aaron Rodgers. So what do you think Baker Mayfield does for his encore with the Rams?
Nothing. not starting him, against a tough. That was the Raiders at home. This is the Packers on the road. Not starting Baker Mayfield.
And neither am I. Still not enough weapons there, and I'm not buying into the whole thing. I mean, come on. Did the end of that game not feel a little scripted to you? I mean, not to get into conspiracies or anything, but yeah, I'm not buying into Baker Mayfield for fantasy at any point. What about Tyler Higbee? Could he at least be passable as a streamer?
No upside. Again, like I can chase 5 points with any tight end that has upside. He has none. I'm not starting him.
Gonna agree, but not on the Rams for a few weeks now. That has not changed. And then what about Aaron Rodgers? What is he gonna do against the Rams?
I mean, I don't feel great about him. It's not the worst matchup, right? The Rams secondary has given up points, given up big plays. He does have Christian Watson. Again, I would say like another guy just kind of on the bubble of that 1 QB starting, slot.
Yeah, I'll put him a tick lower. He's probably going to fall like QB 15 overall for me this week. Not really a guy you want to play, especially if it's a playoffs for you. It would have to be a 2-quarterback league. All right, that's our take on all the quarterbacks and tight ends that matter for Week 15. Don't forget, we got you covered on everything else you need to win right here. Check out this playlist for all the fantasy advice that you need to win.